part of another. I only have to look inside myself to know that's true. Mom has many parts, as we all do, and I don't know all those parts. Those of you that know her here right now know different parts of her. You hold more of her story than I can tell. You have visions of her that are very different from mine. In Psalm 139, verses 13 to 16, it is written, "For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. And in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. There is only one that knows all one's parts, every hair on her head before it even grew, and its color. And also every thought and action, even before she did them. That is God in Jesus, who knew her before she was even created in her mother's womb. He cherished her and loved her into being throughout her life, and especially when he came to take her home. For I know that he did come to take her home, and I also know that she is fearfully and wonderfully made." So together, let's take a journey of Mom's life. As you can see up here, I made a storyboard basically of her life. And to understand a person fully, you really have to go back to the beginning. And we need to understand where she came from. Mom's dad, Ben Cortell, first generation born here from Russian immigrants. His father, I was told, was a Russian Cossack. And we know that that's a tough group of people. They immigrated in the early 1900s because Jews at the time were being persecuted in Russia and wanted a better life. All you have to look at is Fiddler on the Roof. That was my family's life. His tough background made her father tough as well. He was not born with the name Cortell. He was born Benny Cohen. I know because I found his birth certificate amongst Mom's things. When he and his brother wanted to go into business for themselves, they changed their names to Cortell to sound less Jewish, since it was very difficult with all the anti-Semitism in this country to have a business. My grandfather opened first an Army-Navy surplus store post-World War II. That eventually morphed into working man's boots, clothes, and then into jeans and corduroys, etc. And he named the store Ben Cortell's. I worked with him during some summers and college breaks. Being his granddaughter brought no favor at all. He had extremely high expectations and scared the crap out of me. But, on the outside, he was a kind and loving grandfather. Her mother, Lillian Nesbitt Cortell, first generation born in the U.S., her family was from Scotland and Ireland. She was one of 7 children. Her father essentially left his family for another, leaving this new immigrant mother to raise her kids alone. From what I'm told, she was a very tough lady. If a kid got out of line, she would throw at them anything she had in her hands, even if it was a cast iron pan. They learned quick to duck and run. This lady raised chickens and gardened to feed her family. She cleaned other people's homes, took in laundry and sewing. Mom often said she was her favorite growing up, taught her to ride a bike, and she spent a lot of time with her. Every child in that family, including my grandmother, had to work and give half their earnings to the house. They could keep 1/4 to spend, and 1/4 they were told they had to save. She worked for a seamstress, first learning how to fix buttons and silk stockings, because back then that's what they wore. And eventually moving up to sewing clothes, becoming a beautiful seamstress, making beautiful clothes for her children and even for us grandchildren. That was Mom's background. Origins, which helped to make her who she is. First, she is a daughter. Her parents were tough and had high expectations of her. She was responsible to work in the store after school, be impeccably dressed at all times, behave perfectly, as she was a representation of her parents' parenting and of their business. She was raised in the spare the rod, spoiled the child generation. My grandfather was the disciplinarian, and his rod was the belt. He was very tough on her as being her firstborn. But that did not stop Mom from getting into trouble. She admitted she was a rebellious and stubborn teenager. One story she told me was that she and her dear friend Joan one night quietly pushed her father's car out of the garage into the street, and they took a joyride in the middle of the night without permission. She proudly told that story, and also told how her father made her painfully pay for it later, but she said she would have done it again. She didn't like Elvis's music, but she loved guys dressed like Elvis in leather and slick back hair. She loved troublemakers. Mom adored her mother. My grandmother was always impeccably dressed, with matching shoes and purse to go with the outfit, hair always perfectly done and made with lawn. She was a lady in every way, and Mom was always trying to be like her. After her father passed, she vowed to take great care of her mother, and she did. The last 8 years of my grandmother's life was spent right in my mom's home, where she had Alzheimer's disease. Mom worked in Boston at the time, hired people to come in and take care of her while she was at work. She drove over an hour each way to work, and then back home came and did the second shift, caring for Mom. When her mother became bedbound, she would set her alarm for every 2 hours and would get up and change her and turn, repeat, for a very long time. This took a great toll on Mom, and shortly after her mom passed, she then became very ill and we almost lost her. But she said if she had to do it over again, she would. That's the kind of daughter she was. Mom is a sister, the oldest of 3 girls, and was the matriarch and older sister to her younger siblings. Her sister Judy Simonson, an avid and published writer, entrepreneur, who lived up in the mountains of Montana for many years as a homesteader until she passed away. I kept in touch with her often, sending her pictures of the family and speaking with her on the phone, especially after Mom could no longer use the phone, so I would keep her up to date. She was very close to Mom right to the end, only passing a month after Mom did. Her youngest sister, Sandra White, had the best laugh. She was fun, she loved cats, and was always getting into some sort of trouble. She loved her family, and she loved Mom. Unfortunately, she passed before the 2 of them, and I was the one that had to tell Mom she died. Mom, being Mom, was very stoic about it, but I knew she really missed her. Mom is a student. She was double promoted in high school and went to Boston University Nursing School barely at the age of 17. She did well in school, but she didn't finish, having changed paths, meeting up with my dad and getting married. Later in life, she educated herself, became a certified reality orientation therapist, and worked at Easton Lincoln Nursing Home with Alzheimer's patients. She taught herself how to knit and would make afghans and beautiful gowns with sequins that she would wear to parties and formal events. She taught herself how to make Kahlua and strawberry jam and would give them out as gifts at Christmas to her friends. She was always trying to learn to do something different, something new. Mom was a wife. She took her role very seriously. They would have extravagant parties with themes. One was a chic and harem theme. He had a 2-story home that was open in the middle, and they decorated ceiling to floor with materials so as to create the image of a large desert tent. Dad dressed up as a sheik, and Mom as a belly dancer, and she even took belly dancing lessons just to complete the picture. She did. She's pretty good at it, actually. Everyone that came had to be dressed up as well, and for sure, it was a sight to see. Mom would go to client dinners, looking perfect in every way. She entertained for Dad as well. She had many of our family gatherings at the house, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, and Father's Day, with up to 22 people at a time. She would put plywood across wooden horses and then use linen tablecloths in best china and silver. It always looked perfect. She worked hard to portray the image of perfect marriage and perfect wife. But those closest to her know better. Far from perfect in a lot of ways, it did finally end. But that didn't stop Mom. She moved on and made a whole new life for herself in Cumberland, Rhode Island. Mom is adventurous. She learned how to downhill ski and really loved it, but unfortunately a skiing accident broke her shoulder and she gave it up. So then she learned how to cross-country ski and enjoyed that for many years. Mom loved to ice skate and sled in the winter, and though being the most white person in our family, she loved the beach, and her favorite was Old Silver Beach in Falmouth. She used to go down the Saco River in Maine on rafting trips with my dad and friends. She loved to travel. She went to England with my dad, went to Paris with her boss from Jaegers International. She went to Arizona with her dear friend Nora, and she spent a lot of time in Florida with her mom, visiting her often until she brought her home when she could no longer live on her own. She often flew to Florida to visit my brother because he was in the service and was stationed down there. She took her mom to Montana to see her sister Judy. She learned how to ride a motorcycle. She got one and encouraged me to learn as well, and shared her bike with me. Mom was always looking for an adventure, but the one she wanted to do, she never got to do. She wanted to go to Ireland and Scotland with her 2 sisters to explore their roots, but unfortunately never got to do that. That has a way of getting in the way. Mom is a hard worker. She was taught a great work ethic by her parents and lived by the saying, if you're going to do something, then give it 110%. And not only did she expect that from me, but she expected it from herself as well. Over her lifetime, she had many jobs. She didn't work for most of my growing up, but when I was 16, she got her first job. I mentioned she worked as the reality orientation therapist at the nursing home for a long time. Then she worked for Doug King, who's a contractor, as an on-site manager and salesperson. She worked for Jaeger International, a very high-end clothing store, first at Chestnut Hill, and then they moved to Boston to Copley Place. She took her retirement from Jaeger at the age of 65, and retirement lasted about 5 seconds. She then moved on and got a job at Chico's clothing store in Smithfield, Rhode Island. If Mom were here, she would tell you that that was her favorite job. Though she did love the clothes, and we know we emptied her closet, and there was tons of, with tags still on it, some of it. What she loved most was the people she worked with and the customers. She always said that. She made a friend of one of her customers, and they remained friends until the end of her life. She had nothing but great things to say about them. She called her coworkers and her friend the girls. She remembered the girls right up until the end. She had to leave that job, unfortunately, due to the early signs of her own battle with Alzheimer's disease. Had she not gotten that disease, I think she'd still be working there today. Mom is beautiful. There's no denying by looking at her pictures here, the mom was gifted with great beauty. She was just so beautiful, and she worked hard at staying beautiful. From the clothes she wore, her makeup, her matching handbags and shoes, and always, but always had to have lipstick on. You never saw her without it until she could no longer put it on. I would always carry 2 or 3 tubes of her favorite colors in my bag, because as the Alzheimer's progressed, she would lose them, and I would always replace them, which made her feel complete. Her most beautiful, her most treasured beauty was her home. She loved her condo. She impeccably decorated with the Southwest theme, perfectly done. Home and garden and learned a few things from her. She had everything perfectly placed and everything in its place at all times. Sometimes my sister and I would be sitting in the formal living room. You remember that? And she'd step out and we'd move something on the cocktail table, an inch, maybe 2, just to see how long it would take when she got back in the room. Believe it or not, it took seconds. She'd put it back, and then she'd step out, and we'd move it again. And she would notice right away. We all laughed about it. To her, her home was an extension of her. It spoke of who she was in her mind. Mom is a friend. And I can honestly say I don't know all Mom's friends. Mom loves being social and being with people. I'm sure that there are many others out there that knew her as well. But through the eyes of the people I'm about to mention, I learned the most about my mom, not as a mother, but as a human being. When Mom turned 60, my sister and I threw her a surprise birthday party. I made a special box on the table and raised happy 60th birthday, and we asked all the guests to write a message to her. Something funny or a memory, whatever they wanted, and put it in the box. Mom kept that box with her always. When she moved from the condo in Rhode Island to the assisted living, it moved with her. When she passed, I took the box myself, with most of the letters still inside. One friend I want to mention is her longtime friend, Joyce Cipollillo. I have known her since we moved to Easton when I was about 6 or 7 years old. She lived just down the street. Later, both families moved to other homes in Easton, but remained friends until Mom passed. I love Joyce. She's one of the kindest and most loving people, Mom's friends, and Mom has a lot of kind and loving friends. From what I gathered, Mom and Joyce had a lot of adventures together as well. With Joyce's permission, I asked her ahead of time. I'm going to read the letter she put in her box when she took her 60th birthday. She said, "Hi, friend. Remember the night we drove to Brockton at 2 a.m. in the pickup truck being crazy? I didn't mind getting stuck in the cab window because I was with my best friend. Happy birthday, good friend." Together they had another friend, Hannah Taylor, a German immigrant with a heavy German accent and great personality. The three of them spent a lot of time together, either with all of us kids in tow or just with each other. Mom often referred to them the gruesome threesome. She always said that. And those three had a lot of adventures together as well. Hannah has since passed, but this letter she put in Mom's box read, "Do you remember going swimming and never coming out for nothing?" N-A-S-S-I-N-G, that's a German accent. She wrote it that way. These ladies hold a lot of great memories of Mom. Memories I don't have, but they hold memories of her just the same. And as I mentioned earlier regarding her working at Chico's and making friends, there are 3 ladies I have to mention and are here today as well. These wonderful ladies stuck with my mom to the end of her days. They are Carol Murata, Gail McCarry, and Jan Tebow. These were the girls. Before Mom got sick, she talked endlessly about the girls. The girls, the girls, the girls. It was just always the girls. But I really didn't know them until Mom got sick. I now understand why Mom loved them so much. When Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, I was told by them, she sat them down and told them that at some point she would not know them anymore and gave them permission not to come see her. But these ladies did not listen to her. Thank you. I appreciate that. And they kept coming, all the way from Rhode Island to Brockton to see her, and in between kept in communication with me online to make sure that they were up to date with what was going on. They never gave up on her, even when during a visit it finally happened. That day she did not know who they were. Mom intermittently remembered them until she died. If I mentioned the girls to her, she always smiled, always, right to the end, and remembered them. She loved those women and they loved her, and they showed it to her. As I said, she made other friends along the way, but this last lady showed you not only the kind of friends Mom gathered in her life, but also the kind of friend she could be to another. And this had a great impact on me, as how I viewed her. The friend was Nora. Nora lived in the same condo complex with Mom, and she was a spicy little lady, retired school teacher, tough as nails, and loved to laugh. They became fast friends and spent a lot of time together. When Mom was caring for her mom at home, Nora supported her and would understand that she could not go out and leave her, and so she visited with my mother at her house. After Nana passed, Nora and my mom started to go out and do things. They went on a trip to Arizona, something Mom had always wanted to do, and she needed to get away. Unfortunately, this is where Mom noticed something was wrong with Nora. She got lost in the hotel more than once and kept forgetting things. When they returned, Nora got worse fast. Nora was estranged from her daughter, having escaped a severely abusive marriage, so she had no family support. One night, in the middle of the night, Nora was at Mom's door, acting crazy, and Mom knew that Nora had some sort of dementia. With no one legally to step in, Mom took charge and had to do what she hated to do, get her committed. My heart broke for my mom. She just lost her own mother to dementia. She herself was sick from that journey she took with her. And now her close friend had something similar. Once committed, the ex-husband and daughter took over. Mom didn't see her anymore as they moved her to a facility and she didn't know where. Despite all she'd gone through, she took charge and took care. This is the kind of friend my mom is. Mom is Mom. She is mother to myself, my older sister Laurie Miller-Freitas, to my younger brother Eric Miller, and to my brother-in-law Richard Freitas. She always looked at him like a son, and he always treated her like a son. Here is where I put my daughter's vision back on with my mother. Here is the hard part. Here is the good, the bad, the ugly of my mom as she asked me to do. Mom more than once told me she had no motherly or grandmotherly instincts. She said she just didn't have them. As my mom had come from the spare the rods golden child generation, she agreed with this concept. My mom always showed favor to my sister Laurie, and my sister could tell you that. She always did. For whatever reason, she didn't particularly like me. It was not a secret. People saw it. They told me so years later. Mom did not spare the rod with me, not at all. I won't go into great details of what she did throughout my life, but Mom could be cruel at times, both physically and verbally. This made our relationship contentious for years into my adulthood. This is the ugly truth to which she referred. But I won't dwell on this anymore because she and I both got beyond this history. And within this is her true story as being a mom. The power of God and His love will certainly be seen here. Mom loves to laugh and have fun. She would take us skating outside on ponds or inside a rink. She would take us sledding at Stonehill College. As I said, she loved the beach, and she would take us to Old Silver Beach, always with tuna on pumpernickel, with pickles and chips, and always with a dose of sand in the sandwich. So true. We talk about that all the time. If we were good, we got to have ice cream from the snack shack. Mom loved parties, so she encouraged birthday parties. I used to have big sleepovers, and she would make all the snacks, the food, and make sure we were all comfy in the finished basement. All my friends thought she was fun, and to them, she was. She introduced us to modern music. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon could be heard playing often in our home, but not by us, by Mom. She loved that group, the Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, anything modern. Mom was a modern woman. To my dismay, but to my friend's delight, Mom would put on some music and try to get us to dance with her, as I sat there mortified and rolling my eyes. My friends were always welcomed warmly, and they felt right at home. Mom encouraged me to try out music. First I tried the accordion, that wasn't so good. Then I went to the flute. However, I could never learn to read music, never mind transition that to where to place your fingers on it, so I stopped. I was a Girl Scout right from Brownies all the way up to my senior year in high school. She supported camping trips and gatherings. If I was in a parade in town, she was there watching. I did 4-H, and she encouraged me in that as well. As a child, I loved the art, loved to draw. She encouraged me to do so. I would do drawings for Halloween, and she would let me display them on the front kitchen window, which was very exciting. I just loved that because Mom makes her house perfect in every way, so I was disrupting the flow. But she didn't mind. She got me art lessons from the art teacher who lived on our street. I never remember Mom saying I could not do something if I wanted to do it. She was very encouraging as far as learning new things. Mom wanted us to grow up independent and completely self-sufficient. She taught us everything we needed to know to survive. The mom admittedly was a terrible cook. She taught us the basics to survive. She could do a great chili, homemade meat sauce, and beef stew. But her meatloaf, pork chops, and scallops were infamous. You could use her meatloaf to build bricks for a home, but it did make great sandwiches instead. She would make the pork chops to be the equivalent of a hockey puck, and we would play with them on our plates. And then she would make these scallops breaded and baked in the oven so they were great for marbles, and we'd shoot them across the kitchen table. But Mom would laugh, and she would say, she didn't like cooking, she just wasn't a good cook. She didn't follow her wrong. One of the best things Mom did for me was encouraging my passion for horses and riding. Mom had always wanted a horse growing up, but never had one. I started taking riding lessons, and then at the age of 11, she got me a horse. His name was El Caballo, but we called him OK. He was a terrible horse to ride, very dangerous, and soon we sold him. Then we met Chico. Mom fell in love with him right away, and I hated him. Of course, I hated him. That was just how it was. He hadn't been cared for quite some time. He was quite ugly. He had a reputation for being quite difficult, but she just loved him. So she got him. When he arrived at the barn, I refused to go down and see him. To me, this was not my horse, this was her horse. It took quite a bit of convincing, getting to know him, and once he stopped trying to kill me at every turn, I too fell in love with him. I groomed him and worked him every day for months. Not only did he come out looking gorgeous, but he turned into a great big puppy dog. I hate to admit it, Mom was right. He was the perfect horse once you got to really see who he really was. Kind of like Mom. What I didn't pay attention to then was the huge sacrifice she was making so I could have this horse. All her pay from her job at the nursing home was his care. Not only that, but Monday through Friday, she would get up early and go to the barn while I went to school. She would feed him and let him out before she went to work. The rest of the time was my time to care for him the rest of the time was my time to care for him. I had him until I was 16 years old, and then I started working, and life gets in the way. Yeah, I had social life and boys and all that, and so we finally had to give him away to my aunt. But I didn't appreciate what she had done for me. All that sacrifice for all those years, her time, her money, and her encouragement. I regret that now, although I did tell her later how much I did appreciate that. Mom is a grandmother and a great-grandmother. Though Mom admittedly had no grandmotherly instincts, she loved her grandchildren. She was proud of her 3 grandchildren, Sean Pincos, Shana Rial, and Bonnie Frakes. For many years, we went to Mom's condo for the 4th of July and Christmas. She made sure she went to the bakery and had specially made, specially decorated for the season cookies, of course, and she gave them to them. That was very important to her. She was always there for graduations and special events. During her illness, she would often talk about them, how they were doing, and how much she missed them. But she had a very special place in her heart for her great-granddaughter, Lily Rial. Being the proud grandmother that I am, I had plenty of pictures and videos of Lily to share with her. And Mom was just beaming with joy and happiness in seeing this. She often told me she was just the most adorable child she'd ever seen. I would spend much time telling her stories of Lily, what she was doing, and what she was like, and this would make my mom smile ear to ear. These 4 children brought her great joy, though they may not have known her. Mom is a survivor. We almost lost Mom twice. Once when she had a car accident and they had to do CPR on her, and the other when she had Crohn's disease. Those were very scary times. Both times, I have to say though, she never complained. On the contrary, in typical Mom fashion, she worried about her looks. She was upset, and here she's laying in the hospital bed, and she was upset because she had broken one of her nails in the car accident. Never mind the fact that they had to do CPR on her. She was very upset about the Red Bull coat. They had a cutoff for her to do the CPR because she had just bought it, and that was where, and she said to me, I barely wore that coat, that's terrible. My mom, after her near death and surgery for Crohn's, she had to have her makeup. She was always conscious about her looks. Though this ticked me off, like many things about her, it made me feel good as well, because she was acting like Mom. The last 7 years of her life, and this is the most difficult, were the most difficult, but the most blessed for me. I had to find a way to take care of this stubborn Irish, Scottish, Russian woman and still be her daughter. In the beginning, it was very hard. And she and I butted heads because I am just as stubborn as her. I knew what she feared most about having Alzheimer's disease, and I also knew that I was going to have to make it all happen. I had to take away her home, the thing she loved the most. But in the end, after threatening her with a roll of duct tape and that we're going to go out quietly or my way, she adjusted very well. I had to take over her finances, but she actually was relieved by this. I thought I was going to have to take away her car, her last independence. But one day, I was at Laurie's house, and she just called us up and said she dreamt her mother told her not to drive anymore, so she gave it up. And that's that. I had to take over every part of her life, step by step, and my mom followed. One particularly bad day with her, and she could have those bad days, I looked straight into her eyes and I asked her if she trusted me, and she said yes. After that, Mom never questioned me again, for all I had to say to her was, do you trust me? And she would say yes and follow. Over the years, prior to her illness and during it, at some point or another, we would talk about my childhood. And I would say to her she was really hard on me, to which she responded, I had to be hard on you to make you stronger. I always hated that answer. For me, it skirted the issues, her cruelness and unkindness towards me at the time, many times. Though I had long forgiven her, I still yearned just to hear her recognize that she did things that were not always right. One day, God answered my prayer. We were sitting on the front porch of the assisted living. The same subject came up, and it was the usual. I said, you were hard on me. And she turned to me with all seriousness and remorse, and in her eyes she said, I was too hard on you. I told her that was all right, water under the bridge, and I had long forgiven her. But she turned to me and she said, no, I was too hard on you, and I'm sorry for that. Like a healing sob, her words flowed over me, and that was the very last time we ever discussed it. I have no memories of Mom ever saying she loved me growing up, but after this, saying I love you came easily and often for the both of us. Every time I saw her, she would say, hello, darling, and I would say, I love you, Mom, and she would respond, I love you too. Mom was not a very religious person. She had been brought up to experience both Judaism and Christianity. As an adult, she tried something called EST, I have no idea what that was, and the Jehovah's Witnesses, but she never found what she was looking for. I am a Christian, and Mom knew that, but we never talked about it at all, until sometime early on in her illness, when we only had this very brief discussion a handful of times. It always went like this. She would say she believed in God, and I would ask her, what about Jesus? And she would reply, I'm not sure about him yet. Only one time did she ask me what I believed about Jesus, and I told her, I believe he is the Son of God and my Savior. That was the extent of how it went until one day. She was laid into her disease, already in the nursing home, and I found her sitting in a chair, head down, hands together in front of her, and I could see she was saying something. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me she was talking to God, asking him to take her home. I had never seen Mom pray before, not once, never knew she even knew how. So I asked the usual question, what about Jesus? She suddenly sat up, bolt upright in her chair, eyes wide, filled with excitement, and she said to me, he came to her, and he told her he was coming for her, but not yet. I asked her if she dreamt this. She said no. She was wide awake, and she could in detail describe what he looked like. I was excited, but at the same time, I thought, well, maybe she won't remember that. But 2 weeks later, I came upon her talking about it again, and she told me the same thing. But this time she said Jesus did not come back. She was waiting for him to take her home, but she knows it's not time yet. Yet she could still remember where he was in the room and what he looked like to every detail. She was lit up like a Christmas tree. After that, if I mentioned Jesus to her, she would beam with light and joy at the mere mention of his name. One day, as I sat at her bedside, she pointed to just the left of me and said that kind man was standing next to me. She again described me in great detail, though at that point she could not remember his name. But she said he made her feel at peace. I walked those 7 years by my mom's side, trying to be her caretaker and her daughter. But what our relationship became was so much more. I was no longer just her daughter and caretaker, but she was no longer just my mom. We were two children of God walking side by side through this thing called life. This journey we are all on together. In the end, God gave me the mom I always wanted. And I became a kinder and more compassionate daughter as well. Mom has been successful, for she had taught me to be a strong and independent woman, to be a kind friend, to try new things, to be adventurous, how to truly love and cherish my children and grandchildren. And in the end of her life, she taught me how to love her more deeply and compassionately than I had ever imagined I could. God used all of this, the beginning and the end, for the good of the both of us, to bring to light his love and compassion that he has for all of his children. I am sure you noticed that I talked about Mom using the word is, not in the past tense, but the here and now. You see, Mom isn't gone. Mom still is. Mom accepted Jesus as her Savior, and at the end of her life, he came for her. How do I know this? Because not long before she took her last breath, She sat up twice, reaching out with eyes wide open. Laura was there. And she was reaching towards the place where Jesus stood in her room next to me that day, and the other time she saw him as well. I know Mom is in heaven with God and Jesus, her health restored, no longer suffering or in pain, and I know when I get there she will be waiting for me. Because, for me, Mom is not dead. She's only on the other side of that door. I found this saying on the internet, and I don't know who wrote it because they did not credit the person, but I'm going to speak these words as if Mom is standing here right now, and she's speaking to you. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way you always used. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laugh, the little jokes we always enjoyed. Together, play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever present in the household word as it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without a trace of shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is unbroken continuity. Why should I be put out of mind because I'm out of sight? I am waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner, in the other room, behind